in opposition to PlasRefine Plastics Recycling Plant. The ramification of this facility in this location is simply too great to ignore. Air and water pollution from such operations threaten the very essence of our region, our native bushland, agriculture lands, the Wingecarribee River and healthy living spaces. The size and scale are inappropriate for this setting, and the increase in traffic is unimaginable on the roads that are struggling at the moment. It's so close to residential homes and agricultural lands, childcare centres and schools, and the potential for harmful pollutants and toxic emissions is alarming, particularly when you consider how easily contamination could spread through our waterways and across the land. The increased heavy traffic, as I said, will degrade the local infrastructure, creating congestion and safety risks for all those that live in and around the area. It's interesting that they say they're going to recycle about 15% of New South Wales plastic waste. When you think about it, they have to actually operate 24/7 to do that. So if the planning department tries to appease us by placing restrictions and limiting the number of hours, that means that they're actually not recycling a whole lot of New South Wales, and the usage is very small.
I will start with an acknowledgement of country. We would like to pay our respects and acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Gundungurra and the Dharawal peoples, and pay our respects to the elders past, present and emerging, and in gratitude for their long-time custodianship of this country that has given us this beautiful place to live in today, and we are here still trying to caretake and acknowledge that, and we also acknowledge any First Nations peoples who are in the room today. We have a lot to get through, and we've had to start late because of how serious this is. We've had such a sensational response. My name is Rachel Russell. I'm here as someone who's been working with Moss Vale Matters over the past few years. We would ask that everyone keep their questions brief. So we have a number of guest speakers here. We have Judy Hannan, who is our local member for Wollondilly. We will also hear from Wendy Tuckerman, the MP for this area here. We have the Mayor of Wingecarribee Shire Council coming to speak. We will hear from someone representing the kids of Gibgate School and also someone who has worked in the plastics industry. We'll also have some time for questions, and Heidi Fagan to give you a précis of the timeline that has led us to this point, and Anna Phillips, who will speak about where to from here. So, Judy, the Honourable Judy Hannan MP, thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and I would also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land today. Today, I need to be really clear, this is not my electorate. But while this development is outside my electorate, I'll always speak on things that do affect my constituents, regardless of the location. And air and water pollution does not take note of electoral boundaries. And as someone who represents the interests of this region, I feel compelled to stand up against this project. As you all know, the recommendation by the Department of Planning and Housing and Infrastructure to proceed is deeply disappointing, and I'm sure everybody here is really, really frustrated by this. The department reports the visual impact due to scale, size and design has been satisfactorily addressed, and for those residents who feel further impacted, they suggest that you plant some trees. So I guess that a few hedges is not going to make a difference in someone's backyard, and it's not going to make this project acceptable. The department also reports that the applicant has satisfactorily addressed the community's deep concerns over the changing character of the area due to land use and the effect on people's sense of place and surroundings, potential impacts on psychological health from stress, anxiety and fear. And the number of people present here today certainly demonstrates that they're wrong. I want to acknowledge the concerns voiced by Wendy Tuckerman, the member for Goulburn, and the Wingecarribee Council, and I note that many of the new councillors are present today. And I stand with them as an independent in opposition to PlasRefine Plastics Recycling Plant. The ramification of this facility in this location is simply too great to ignore. Air and water pollution from such operations threaten the very essence of our region, our native bushland, agriculture lands, the Wingecarribee River, and healthy living spaces. The size and scale are inappropriate for this setting, and the increase in traffic is unimaginable on the roads that are struggling at the moment. It's so close to residential homes and agricultural lands, childcare centres and schools, and the potential for harmful pollutants and toxic emissions is alarming, particularly when you consider how easily contamination could spread through our waterways and across the land. The increased heavy traffic, as I said, will degrade the local infrastructure, creating congestion and safety risks for all those that live in and around the area. It's interesting that they actually recycle about 15% of they say they're going to recycle about 15% of New South Wales plastic waste. When you think about it, they have to actually operate 24/7 to do that. So if the planning department tries to appease us by placing restrictions and limiting the number of hours, that means that they're actually not recycling a whole lot of New South Wales, and the usage is very small. So I think the loss of trust in the government, if this goes ahead, will be felt for generations. And while we've had one win in getting the independent planning panel to actually come out and hear submissions in person, I don't want to discourage anybody. This is a really big fight. In the last 6 years, the IPC has approved 103 projects and rejected only 14. So it's a huge fight. So we can't afford to be complacent and say somebody else will make the submissions or somebody else will speak. I urge each and every one of you, every voice is so important. If you can't get up and speak, make a written submission. If you don't do it now, you'll live with the consequences. The risk is too great, and this is really important. I want to tell you that I looked up what IPC does and does not, so it might help you with your submissions. So they don't make policy, and they don't consider the reputation of the applicant. They don't undertake whole-of-government assessments or enforce conditions of consent. But what they do is hold meetings and they listen to people. They make determinations based on legislation and policy. So they're the things you need to look at when you're making a submission. And they will publish a statement of reasons as to why they've made the decision they have. You've all been given, I believe, or there's QR codes around that tell you when the face-to-face submissions will be made. There are also information about when you can make your written submission to, and there will be an online submission that you can actually speak to. But I wish each and every one of you don't go home from here and wait to register to the last minute or wait to write the letter at the last moment. You've turned up here tonight, so you need to go home and tap that little computer as hard as you can, think about how it affects you, have a look at legislation and policy and these things, and let's all stand together. I'll stand with Wendy, I'll stand with your council, and make sure that this region gets the best outcome. Retain what we've got that's so precious to us. Let's fight together.
I'd now like to call the Honourable Wendy Tuckerman, Member of Parliament, our local member for Goulburn.
Thank you, everyone, and it's absolutely fantastic to see such a big crowd here this evening. I just want to acknowledge our Mayor and councillors, and of course Judy Hannan for her support, and ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your support. Now, obviously just come from Sydney this evening, and I'm just trying to work out exactly what the process is this evening. I had a lot of notes going through some of the issues that I think need to be challenged for this DA, but I'm pretty sure that Moss Vale matters and the committee will be addressing that this evening. First of all, I just want to say we've been fighting this for quite some time, and I have certainly voiced my concern and have been against this project from the outset. As a result of that, I have done many questions on notice. I've spoken to Parliament. I have had meetings with ministers. I've had meetings with community members. I've actually managed to get a minister or two out here to look at the site. We have also had consultation with GHD, who have been representing the proponents, and I have actually addressed a community forum and have spoken to the proponent, suggesting to the proponent that this is not the right site for their project. And I have actually offered to find another site for them. Now, we all know how important recycling is. There is no doubt about that, and we are not against recycling. In fact, it's an important piece of our environment going forward. But you just can't accept projects if they're not in the right site and they're going to impact the very community they're there to help serve. So that is my issue. I am very concerned about the planning framework. I'm very concerned that the department has approved this, although they have stipulated they want the panel to put conditions in. They want the panel to ensure that plans are made around noise, vibration, environmental. But to me, that's too late. And there needs to be transparency around what those plans are. And I think that process is terribly, terribly wrong. And that's why, as a community, each and every one of you need to stand up. You need to be present at the hearings that are being forecast next week. Even if you don't want to speak on the issue, please turn up, just like you have tonight. We need a strong voice and we need a strong presence to say this is not acceptable at this site to our community. I cannot reiterate that enough. And the other thing I don't want you to be caught out on too, when we discuss some of the issues of concern, please do not be afraid, if you're going to speak, to repeat those concerns. We need the IPC to understand that they are very serious to us. Don't be fooled into thinking, well, someone else has already said that. I don't need to say it. Say it as many times as you can. I want that. And that has actually come from one of the panel members. They want to hear from you. So let's give them our voice. We will continue to fight until the very end. And even though the IPC are known to approve, they've also been known to reject. And this is not the right site for this project. And the reasons why it's not the right site will be certainly addressed. And I think the Mayor's just going to go through the whole process in regards to the meetings with us as well. Thank you again so much for attending. We need you. We need you to stand up. We need your voice. Thank you very much.
I'd now like to call our new Mayor for Wingecarribee, Jessie Fitzpatrick.
Who would have thought 2 days in we'd be dealing with this? So look, I think everyone at this point knows Council's position. We're obviously against, and today we actually had a meeting with the planning panel, and they were quite responsive. So we went through the motions, we went through all the negatives, we stayed very clear of the positives. They did ask a lot of sort of probing questions, like really good questions about location and microplastics, and they were concerned about truck movements through the equine. So they're asking the right questions. They didn't really give us an indication as to how they felt. We felt when the meeting ended, they didn't sort of leave us anywhere, but they did ask a lot of good questions. So what I did find out is when you speak, if you speak, there's 24 registered at the moment. It'd be nice if we can get a number of, they want to know prior, if we can, before they register, how many are going to speak, and a rough number of how many of you can make it on the night. If we can sort of find out tonight how many of us can make it. Sorry. If we can find out tonight who is intending on coming to the meeting, they would just like some rough numbers. They have asked... Great, thank you. I did speak to repeating ourselves and James Wendy. They said they're happy to hear people repeat, so don't feel like you're overlaying. Say what you want to say. They did say they want to see your emotional side. So there was one lady in particular there that was saying, yeah, we're happy to see the emotion of the public. So I said, feel free to let loose. They want to know about it. They will keep going until everybody's heard. So if there's 50, 60 speakers, that's fine. They will go even if it goes till the next day, and they're prepared to sit there for hours at end. We do have 5 minutes to speak, and there can be a granted time extension, but they did, 5 minutes to speak, and they did say that an extension would be granted, but if we can get through the 5 minutes, that'd be wonderful. The running order will be, I'll facilitate and introduce. The staff will then speak on they're going to come from a technical point of view. I believe we've got 2 staff members speaking. Any councillors that want to speak, and then on to the community. But look, as I said, they're asking the right questions. I personally felt we got a bit of movement out of them. So beyond that, they were very interested in what our concerns are with microplastics in the air, and we spoke towards things about, obviously, one of the things I touched on a lot was into the future. If this is here, what's not coming towards us? So people aren't going to buy the property next door to build whatever they want to build if this already exists. So it seemed like we're always talking in a over-the-top strategic view with them, and I said, no, we need to look at boots on the ground, and boots on the ground is, there might be Equine next door, and they don't want to be next to 100 truck movements. There's the Garvan Institute. They don't want microparticles in all their facilities, so there's real tangible results, and they were very responsive to this. Outside of that, they asked us, they were very happy that we were saying not the right location, so that was received quite well as well. That we weren't just saying no. So look, just touch on all these points. And as I said, they are happy to hear from everyone. Bring your emotion, and let's show these guys how we really feel, and put some pressure on.
Okay, thanks, Jess.
I would now like to ask Poppy from... Oh, Heidi. Oh, you're next. Okay, sorry. Heidi Fagan, who is the backbone, has been one of the backbone members of Moss Vale Matters from the beginning. Thank you.
I'm just here to give a little bit of history. Closer? Okay. To history of how this came about. So the actual property itself is a legacy. It's left over from some subdivision that happened back in the 1970s, and a very small portion of industrial land was left on a very large piece of residential land. So the land itself has actually got 2 zones. It has an environmental living zone and it has an industrial zone. On Christmas Eve of 2020, the immediate neighbours to this property received a plain white envelope in their letterbox. They opened the letterbox and the letter, and it didn't introduce them in respect to, we're going to do these great things for your community. It was just simply, this is what we are doing, and we want your property to put our noise reading machinery on. There was no lead up to it, there was no niceties, there was nothing, and they did it on Christmas Eve, knowing full well that the company who was representing the proponent and the council were closed for the best side of a month. So Christmas and New Year was pretty ordinary for the people at the top of Beaconsfield Hill. The proponent then proceeded to put the Sears together and request the Secretary's input to their proposal. Their proposal, then the EIS was put out and the community picked their documents to pieces. The planning department sent them back to sharpen their pencil and answer the questions that the community wanted answered. So the GHD didn't do their job, the community did their job. We were the ones who picked up the issues with the size of the buildings, the height of the buildings, the potential water contamination, the flooding issues. We picked that up. Their proposal originally was to use Lytton Road or Parks Road or Watson Road and run straight up Beaconsfield Road and into their site, because as they told us in this room back in 2021, that was their lawful access and that's where they were going to enter from. The community rallied and went to the council, and the council said they would not support the use of residential roads. So they then changed where they were going to come in, and they proposed to come through town and into Lackey Road and hang a right through a forced resumption of land over the Garvan Institute, where they were going to force the council to force the road up and over with a 7-metre retaining wall beside people's properties in order to shoot down into their land. They were going to use Beaconsfield Road and all of the local roads in order to construct their development because, again, as we were told, that was their lawful access. The community, again, rallied, pointed out all of the negatives to this particular type of access, and council refused to enter into a voluntary planning agreement to force that road, and so therefore they had to look for somewhere else. It seemed to be that every single time we cut the head off this snake, it grew back. And they came back a third time, and that time they were actually proposing to use Innes Road between two schools in a residential area to turn onto Lackey Road to be able to go around and in through Collins Road and up the north-south road that they're proposing at the moment. They couldn't meet the criteria because, again, the council rallied and made sure that they were held to the noise emissions from the trucks and so forth, and they couldn't meet it. So they had to scrap that. And now they are proposing to move the railway crossing in Douglas Road 190 metres to the west, decommission the existing railway crossing and completely change Douglas Road in order for their trucks to be able to access the road that they're proposing. Yes, Boral have given consent for... They have given consent, landowners' consent, in order to be able to put in a design. They have not consented to the design. Okay, so that is one of those conditions that's in that condition of consent that would require some sort of agreement between council as the road manager and Boral as the rail manager. So the upkeep for the railway crossing becomes council's responsibility because they are the road manager. So, moving on, they are proposing now to put the road up the paper road between Chesterfield's